Hello and welcome to Champ Select, your go-to competitive Legends of Runeterra podcast. I'm Alex. As per usual, joining me are my two co-hosts, Noble.
Hello.
And Hugh.
Hello.
And today we have got a whole lot to go over. There's been quite a bit of drama in the community of late between some specific decks. The World's Qualification Tournament was this weekend, and well, there's a lot to talk about, honestly. I'm pretty excited to get into it. And honestly, looking at, we take a second to look at the questions we get asked every week, obviously. And we had like a whole outline for the episode, and then we looked at our slew of questions, and you guys kind of just knocked it out of the park with everything we wanted to talk about. So I think that all things considered, we're probably just going to go pretty much through a lot of these questions. We're going to spend a lot of time on a lot of them, and basically kind of format the episode around these questions. So
yeah, y'all do that a lot. You nail exactly what we want to talk about quite often. So yeah, props to all of you. Good job. You go.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think for starters, I want to start with a little bit of the world's drama. So our first question comes from Keon Spy. They ask, I would like to hear your opinion about the World's Qualifiers drama. Major screw up by Riot or what? And for those of you who are maybe unaware of the drama that was going on, well, it's kind of a lot, to be honest. Basically, World's Qualifiers was this weekend, and it was not handled great, I'm gonna say.
Yeah, so I read a couple of people's posts and kind of like statements. I don't know, there's the Twitter thing where you type up your little statement and post it. Just because I didn't know exactly how the whole qualification process worked as far as not being a competitor, so not getting, Riot's series of communications about it, it was kind of unclear. It sounded like a couple people basically up until almost 10 minutes before the tournament were told they were in the tournament and then just weren't. Does that sound about right? Is that the drama that you were talking about?
Honestly, yeah, I think that one of the best ways to do this is Kevor, who is a prominent Legends of Runeterra player. You are probably familiar with the name. Very good player. There was a lot of drama regarding him and some other players, and honestly, if you are unfamiliar with the situation, Kevor posted a twitlonger on his Twitter, and honestly, if you guys don't mind, it'll probably be like a quick 1 or 2 minute read, but I really think it has all of the context that we need for this discussion. So I think I'm just going to go ahead and read it pretty much in its entirety here real quick.
Yeah,
so,
that seems like a good idea.
Yeah,
kind of. You can. There's some stuff we can skip over there, but yeah,
go for it.
Okay, so hi, this might reach people that don't know me, so let me write a quick intro. I'm Kev, a longtime card game player. I play mainly Legends of Runeterra right now. I'm a pretty competitive person. I always needed some kind of outlet, so I've played in a lot of tournaments in my life. In the past, I've played Magic the Gathering, Hearthstone, and other competitive-focused games. I always strive to make the best possible play and try to improve whenever I can dedicate enough time to a game. I never did this full time, but you could call it my primary hobby. So that obviously rings a bell for most of us, I would say. With that out of the way, I've been trying to qualify for LOR Worlds for the past 6 months. Sadly, I came a little bit short and finished number 4 on the waitlist for ladder. I've been having a tough time recently. I was pretty okay with not making it. I understood where I failed, and I was striving to improve those areas for the next year championship. A little more than a week ago, my teammate reached out to me to tell me that it's very possible and even likely I'm making it into the tournament through the waitlist, even if I'm all the way down to number 4. Now, let me explain how the tournament was quote-unquote supposed to work with the best of my ability. The goal is to have a 64-player tournament per region. How to achieve that? 18 who previously top 4'd a seasonal tournament. There's this crack guy called Henneke who top 4'd 3 of them. 24 of them who got enough points through seasonal tournament, and 22 who got enough points through ladder. Now, I'll try not to get too into the nitty-gritty of it, but we got sent an email by Riot with official rules to follow, a deadline of September 2nd to register the Battlefly, and instructions on how to install a special client to play the tournament on, an invite to the official Discord to ask any questions we might have. Everything was pretty clear. I thought this process was pretty smooth. The way I was supposed to be in was through the ladder list. As you can see here, there's a link to a ladder list, which shows he should be in. The 4 players highlighted here did not compete in the America tournament. They all qualified from ladder. I'm waitlist number 4 on the ladder. We've known they would not play for more than a week now. This has been available publicly on the Player and Terror website since the 27th of last month. Now, here's the rule about how a waitlisting process should work. Another couple of links that basically outline, based on the rules that are shown, it says that Kevor should be 100% into this tournament, given all of the information we've seen. So, without getting into the nitty-gritty, basically at this point, it's pretty much a guarantee that Kevor should be in the tournament. Okay. All right, continuing. I was pretty happy that I got to play in the World's Qualifiers. Everywhere I could look, I'm in. I've read the rules 3 times. I asked everybody if they interpret it the same way as me, not that there is even room for interpretation. So I got hard into practice mode. I took a 2-day break from work to play in the tournament, letting my coworkers short-staffed somewhat last minute, but they were very happy to cheer for me. I jammed games every day. I tried to do my best, and I was honestly pretty excited to play. Now is the part where I say this is the most mismanaged tournament I have ever played in my entire life, and it became clear at some point that most of the admins are just winging it. I can be anxious at times, so I've been trying since August 30th to get a 100% confirmation from Riot officials that I'll be playing in the tournament. I was mainly told that we would receive confirmation after September 2nd, which is completely fair. Confirmation never came to anyone, so I waited. On September 3rd, we were just told by a Battlefy admin that he would be the official tournament organizer, and he started saying some wild misinformation on the Discord about how the tournament process and waitlisting process was going to work. I actually called the guy, and it's mostly because he got thrown into the mix by Riot and given partial info. After a good chat where I tried explaining the rules that we were given and confirmed with him that he has in front of him so confirming the rules, with what we were told, he thanked me for helping. He was a super chill guy. I really wanted to help make sure everyone was on the same page. Now, what happened to the Black Boss? He's a Brazilian player that was qualified through the seasonal point system. Apparently, in the Portuguese email, there was no September 2nd deadline shown, and on September 3rd, the day before the tournament, when Black Boss tried to get into the tournament, he was told he missed the chance and it's too late. I believe he 100% should get to play. He earned a spot fair and square. The rules are pretty clear. If Black Boss is in, it should mean there's one less waitlist spot from the seasonal waitlist. So, when they announced 1 hour before the start that they would fit Black Boss into the tournament, I was happy for him, and I was not too worried because I'm making it through the ladder waitlist. That meant that Black Boss should take the spot of the last waitlisted player from the seasonal pool, which would be IMAC. I thought that situation, was pretty ridiculous because it means somebody will be kicked right before the tournament start. 3 p.m. when check-in started, we were told that the bracket will probably have to change due to them adding Black Boss in. I asked again if I was good since Black Boss would come from a totally different qualification system, and I was told that I just needed to check in, which I was. 3:55 p.m. Again, we were told not to start our match quite yet because they're finishing up the bracket. I am still in the tournament. 4 p.m. Same thing. 4:03 p.m. New bracket. Kevor is kicked from the tournament. Emog still playing. What I was told a few minutes later by another admin is that they have a different quote-unquote master waitlist, and they have a different ways of applying it. That it was just semantics, and that he's sorry that's how it panned out. I don't have any ill will towards any specific individual. I just feel misled, lied to by admins, and that they completely disregarded their own rules that were sent to every competitor. Ask basically anyone that played in the tournament, and I think they will all agree this was not the rule. So what ends up happening is that only 20 players play from the ladder side, and 26 players play from the seasonal tournament side. Whew. All right, so after that, it basically just kind of winds down with he's frustrated, but understandably so. So there's a lot to unpack there. What are you guys' initial thoughts?
Well, basically it seems to confirm our initial feelings about the tournament when we heard that it wasn't even going to be broadcast at all. Like they had no intentions of streaming it. Like things felt a little bit thrown together last minute. Like we couldn't even find very good information, accurate information on how everything was operating, like what was happening when. It was just difficult to find info on the tournament, and they also weren't going to show it to anyone. Yeah. And that seemed a little bit suspect.
Yeah, and like this isn't This is a classic problem with tournaments like this. This is not a Riot only problem. Like this is a consistently a problem in trading card games, particularly of just because of like when there's a bunch of different methods of qualification, and because there's like this big confusing system, and because like, let's be honest here, they're not the most viewed esports out there. The marketing and stuff sometimes falls flat, and or doesn't exist. These kind of mix-ups happen a lot. That doesn't make this any better. It just really, really sucks. I cannot imagine thinking I'm qualified to play a Worlds qualifier until like 5 minutes after the tournament is supposed to start. And then they're like, all right, bracket updated. And then you're just kind of like kicked. That is what I surmise to have happened, and absolutely crazy. And definitely feels very, very mismanaged. I mean, I don't have much else to say with it other than like, this was obviously really, really shitty, especially in their like marquee competitive event, right? Like Worlds is what they have been building for. The 10th region is out. Like, we're doing the thing now. It's definitely disappointing. But I'm still excited for Worlds itself, but it's just kind of like a, kind
of a slap in the face.
Yeah.
And not just to the people who got kind of screwed here. It's just,
totally.
There's a bunch of parts of this that just are so sloppy. Like there were questions from people who should have received answers way sooner than 5 minutes after the tournament started, Yeah.
So, I mean, like, obviously this is like the way that this is laid out is just like, it's really egregious. We do need to acknowledge a little bit that, this obviously was written by the person who got kicked out of the tournament. Obviously, there's going to be a little bit of heart, put in the text, but there should be, right? Like, it's good that we can see how this negatively impacted like him and his life. He like talked about calling out of work for multiple days, right? Like leaving his team short-staffed, right? Like these are errors that I would not expect from Riot Games. Like this feels like something that they should have hired somebody to do a long time ago, and they should have known who was in charge of it, and that person should have known they were in charge of it, right? Because really at the end of the day, I think that if Riot Games had somebody on their staff that was like the tournament organizer guy, or like this was his job, right? Like he was supposed to make sure all the players knew about it, make sure all the players were registered, make sure everything ran smoothly. Like this would not have happened, basically.
Yeah. And if they do have that person, then sorry, bud.
Yeah, then that's really bad. But like, I think it's pretty obvious based on the description we've been given from Kevor here. And for what it's worth, this has been pretty much all but confirmed by multiple sources in the community. There's no like screenshots of all the Discord logs or anything, but like he said he offered to provide them if people didn't believe him, and it's been corroborated by many other people.
This is
So it's just pretty unfortunate, really. Like I really hope that they take something away from this. It's that like we do need, it needs to be somebody's job to make sure these tournaments are run well. And like, if that means that, and like, I know that Riot Games can support that, basically, is how I feel about it. Like, it seems kind of cheap to me that this wasn't already somebody's job, given like how much effort Riot puts into the other esports scenes they have, like League of Legends, obviously the biggest esports scene in the world. There's Valorant. Valorant already has a huge esports scene. It came onto the scene with a booming esports scene, right? And it sucks to not see that same sentiment in the Legends of Runeterra market. Like, can you guys imagine if this type of thing happened in a League of Legends, like the League of Legends World Championship? Oh my god!
Like on the qualifier, like the NA qualifier circuit, like a team that was told that they got to go to like, I don't know what an equivalent, like the playoffs just kind of got like booted at the last minute, would be so ridiculous.
If any of the lack of communication, the last minute kicking, like getting booted, any of these things happening for League of Legends would have been a complete outrage and would have thrown the community into mass hysteria.
Yeah, totally.
And we got several things, and it's just kind of, it's crazy how good, we know Riot is good at this.
Yeah.
We know they can run tournaments, massive tournaments,
Totally.
and run them extremely well. And it's kind of weird that they couldn't do it for this one.
Yeah.
Really disappointed, like especially because like one of the things I was so excited for Legends of Runeterra about, even like when the game was just starting. Like I remember like when I started playing Legends of Runeterra, and I started to think to myself like this is a great game. Maybe I should try to play this game, competitively. Really try to take a stab at it, right? One of the things I was most excited about was that this was a card game run by Riot, because card games struggle in the esports scene. They always have. They're hard to watch, especially for people who you really have to be an invested player to want to watch a card game broadcast. And that's kind of just a downside of card games in general, I would say. I've yet to see one that has really been able to solve that issue. And I was really excited because Riot was, I thought, the actual best company in the world to be able to make card game esports feel cool.
Yeah, like
right? I think they did a pretty good job with TFT, Teamfight Tactics, which is an auto battler, right? Like an auto chess, right? That's another game that's similarly turn-based, kind of slow, and I think they've done a great job with the esports scene for that game. And so I was really, really optimistic that this would be like a wonderful broadcast. They'd put a lot of money and effort into making it a phenomenal broadcast, which would make people want to play the game, like would make the game look cool, right? Like, when you see people outplay people and it's awesome in League of Legends, you can see how good people are in League of Legends, right? It's hard to see how good somebody is in a card game. And I had a lot of faith in Riot to be able to do it. And this is I was really disappointed by this. And granted, this is still only the qualifiers and Worlds has yet to happen. It's still possible that the actual Worlds broadcast is better than our wildest dreams.
Totally. Absolutely.
And
I hope it is, honestly. Like, this is not...
I really hope it is, yeah. But given this, like, clearly it's nobody's job. So I'm pretty upset about it, to be honest.
Yeah. I don't think that... And that's absolutely reasonable, right? Like, especially when... It's a game that we care a lot about. I mean, we have an entire whole podcast about it. I don't know if you knew that. But, like... You want that to be reciprocated, and one of the things that I've loved about Legends of Runeterra is how in tune it seems like Riot is with the community a lot of the time. Like, yeah, they've had their mistakes, and Azir and Irelia were too good for too long, or whatever. But on balance, it feels a lot better than most card games to me. And so it's kind of disappointing to have the world's build up be kind of let down like this, and before the tournament even happens, right? This kind of just puts a damper on the whole mood. I'm very excited for Worlds. I'm very excited to watch Worlds. Just I hope it's good.
The bar has lowered significantly, which is
not good.
Weird and tragic for Riot. And also, if this were any other tournament for like this, this is Worlds. Like if this was anything else,
if this was a seasonal top 32, it would be like weird and crappy, but fine.
Yeah, it would suck for sure.
Yeah.
But everyone would be like, well, this does happen sometimes, but this is Worlds. This is the flagship tournament of this game, and it's their first one. So they like really should make this one go really well, because if you don't do it right the first time, it's really hard to get people to want to see a second one.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And the one like saving grace in my mind is that, okay, this is the first one. Like you said, like in all reasonable worlds, I would think that you want to make the first one like perfect. Like you said, like I think you'd want to go all out for it, like really get people into it. When I think back to Hearthstone, like the first BlizzCon tournament was huge. It was like the game exploded after BlizzCon. And granted, that was also in large because the game was coming to mobile at that point, but still, like it could have been very similar. Totally. I think. And I was looking forward to that. I was really hoping, like a lot of the League of Legends players would open the League of Legends client and see Legends of Runeterra World Championships and click on it, right? Like,
Totally.
there should be a lot of exposure, and it is their first one. So, like, I don't expect everything to go smoothly in the first World Championship. I expect there to be some unforeseen problems, and I expect you to not necessarily have all the answers for it, but I wanted Riot to have that be somebody's job, basically. And like, I stand by, like, this all could have been prevented if this was just somebody's job. So I really hope they hire somebody, basically.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, and I mean, it's absolutely okay to make mistakes and have blunders. Like we keep saying, it's the first one. Just when you make those mistakes, they can make them a lot more gracefully. Like, they can acknowledge them, apologize for them, fix them quickly, and respond and be very transparent about everything they do.
Yep.
Like, there are ways to make these mistakes, if not acceptable, at least palatable.
Understandable, yeah. And it doesn't feel like we have that
At all.
that yet.
Yeah, it just seems like it feels like a bunch of random people being given snippets of information and then sort of passing the buck to the next guy to hope he doesn't get, blamed for whatever happened.
Totally.
Yeah, and this it really hasn't been addressed, really.
Yeah, has there been an official statement from Riot at all about this? Like a big one?
No, I mean, there was the most I have seen is like people adding like Riot Umbridge and Steve Rubin on Twitter, and then being like, "Yikes!" Basically, it's like,
God. Yeah, that's bad.
Yeah. I've seen like, "I'm so sorry," like, we'll make sure this doesn't happen again. But there's been no official statement from Riot at the time we're recording this, as far as I'm aware, at least.
That is my understanding as well.
So, like, I do believe that they are working on it, and it sounds like you said, like, this kind of was a cluster, and so honestly, it might be taking a while on their end to figure out why this happened in the first place. Who actually is responsible for this? Is it anyone? If so, that's a problem. If it's no one, then who's responsible for that? Right? Like, there's a lot to unpack there.
Totally.
But I hope that they do, and I hope that they release a statement. And I'm not really sure what a good course of action it would be.
Well, they'll make a statement, and then they'll choose, and then we can get on here and make fun of them for it. And then the natural life cycle of a card game will continue ad nauseum.
Yeah, which I guess brings us kind of to our next question here. This one's from Emmy Kayla. They ask, is there any reasonable way to compensate Kavor and Chunkster for being wrongly kicked out of Worlds? Feels like an apology just isn't enough, but I'm not sure what else they can do.
So, an apology is... it's not enough per se. Like, there's a bunch of things they can do, but there's nothing they can do that will make it right. There's only things they can do that can make it hurt less, is how I feel about it. Because at the end of the day, they're not playing in Worlds.
Yeah.
They aren't.
They didn't get a chance to qualify. Yeah.
Yeah. And
in fact, they did the necessary things to qualify and didn't get a chance to play. Because like Worlds qualifiers are a part of Worlds, like, you know what I mean? Like,
and I guess if they like, because they can't also now eject other people from the tournament to throw them in.
Well,
now.
like, and the qualifiers have been played and not everybody made it. Like, there's nothing.
Right. That's what I'm saying. There's no,
that they would have, or the people that did replace them did do well. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. There's nothing, they can't give them back exactly what they kind of lost.
Yeah.
And because that's the case, there's nothing they can actually do that'll make it completely okay. They can just sort of throw free stuff at them and be like, please don't be too mad at us. Yeah. We're sorry. Except these... I don't know how mad would I be tokens. If they made an exclusive emote for like...
I was about to say, like, yeah, give them an exclusive card back, and an exclusive tilt emote only they can use.
Like, imagine having one of two people on planet Earth that have this one emote
Get to
or this one
spam
card
the
back.
get fucked emote.
That's just a picture of them like crying.
No, it's just a big F that appears on
Oh,
screen.
can it just be like, I'm sorry with like riot scrawled under it? And so you can just like, spam it at people when you just absolutely dunk on them.
That's really good. Okay, so I think that like apology is mandatory. I was just gonna go ahead and say that. If like that's step one. I think that if they're going to do anything, the best thing that they could do would be to send them an invitation to Worlds Qualifiers 2. Basically, just like auto invite them. I think honestly, and I
And
honestly,
you don't think that's like too far? You don't think that's like unfair to other people or too far? Because I don't, but I'm just making sure.
Sorry, you cut out on my end. Can you say that one
do
more
you
time
think
for me?
that you don't think that that's? I would be surprised if they did that because next Worlds is like a year away.
Yeah, that's kind of the thing.
It's kind of the issue here. Yeah.
It sucks. I mean, it's a year away, right? Like it's a long time from now. Who knows where anybody will be in their life?
Totally.
At that point, people may or may not still be playing Legends of Runeterra, but
Who knows if there will be another Worlds? Like, I hope there is. I very much hope that there are many, but like it's not a guarantee.
yeah. But I think that's like if I was Riot, that would be the thing if I was at that board meeting, I would be like, we should really just send like auto invite these players to the next Worlds qualifiers, like and that'll probably mean that 2 spots are taken already from the next Worlds qualifier, but I don't really think that anybody in the Legends of Runeterra community would have a problem. Like obviously these players deserve to play, they should have been able to. I don't want to steal a spot from somebody else, but like they basically got their spot stolen. So that's like, if they're gonna do anything, I think I would recommend that. But
did the people that, but basically by the rules, the people that replaced them shouldn't have, and they got replaced at the last minute? Is that kind of what happened?
Pretty much, yeah.
Okay, because like I was pretty sure, but like
It's a lot.
yeah, it was just kind of confusing. So they just like kind of got booted. Basically, Riot on the back end, there must have just been some miscommunication that was like, these 2 people qualified, these 2 people didn't. And yeah. And it's probably just on them and they need to eat the spots the next Worlds and,
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not the end of the world, right? Like, these spots are going to get filled up by good players anyway. Like Kevin is mentioned in the post that he was excited to try and qualify for next year's Worlds already. So like, obviously,
Well, it was the end of their
plans
Worlds
to do it.
Yep.
Like you said, I mean, it's tough to say for sure that
I thought it
you
was
can
funny too.
reasonably give.
I don't know if
an
Alex heard it,
invite
but
that far into the future.
Sorry, he made a pun and I was appreciating it.
That is important.
Okay. All right. Should we move on? Enough doom and gloom, or
Yeah, probably.
I think that's
that there's,
pretty much it for the questions on Worlds.
yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about a little bit of the actual card game we've been playing. This one comes from, or we got a couple questions from Sna and Fobla. The first one is, what's the strongest region in the current meta? What do you think, Hugh?
Okay, well, if sheer numbers are anything to go by, it certainly feels like Bandle City because it's everywhere.
Yeah.
There's like there's probably more than 5 different iterations of Bandle City decks. A lot of them are Swarm.
Has Cosmic been releasing meta reports, or did they stop? I think they might have stopped, right?
There have been not so many lately.
Yeah. I didn't see any. I haven't seen
fair
any.
because that person put in an incredible amount of work into the community. So
It's tragic,
yeah.
regardless. Well, there's also been like Mobalytics has just been like absolutely. I don't know what's going on over there, but the site's basically been on fire since the set dropped. Wow. That has not helped.
yeah, I haven't noticed that. I didn't spend a lot of time on Mobilex, honestly. I have a fun answer, and it kind of ties into my answer to a different question. But my hot take is I think actually Noxus. I think Noxus is the region that's in the best spot right now, because it looks like the best Bandle City deck, or at least the most prevalent in the Worlds qualifiers. We kind of checked out the lineups people brought, thought about them a little bit. this Noxus Bandle Tree deck that's kind of been exploding both on ladder, and so many people in that tournament had there. It looked like of the people who qualified, like about half were playing Noxus Bandle Tree, and like 65-70% were playing Draven Caitlyn. By the way, makes a ton of sense to me that we need to be replacing Ezreal with Caitlyn instead of Draven, because Draven's insane and Ezreal kind of sucks. Which everyone laughed at me when I said a couple months ago, but whatever. I'm not bitter.
It's because you were wrong then, and now you're not wrong anymore because we have Caitlyn.
That's fair. Yeah, that's fair. But Draven Swain, baby, that was good times. And then just Noxus's removal is great. Scorched Earth being the most playable landmark removal spell against all these Bandle Tree decks is absolutely huge. Being able to, I don't know, just like even just playing TF Swain right now is good against these Bandle City decks. Noxus just feels like it's in a great place. It also has, I guess I'll talk about this now. My favorite like hidden interaction, House Spider, because the Spiderling is from Shadow Isles. It's 2 pips for Bandle Tree.
Really?
Yeah, because the Spiderling is a Shadow Isles card.
Oh my god, I did not know that.
Yeah. I played it for the first time the other day, and then I like moused over Spiderling for some reason, and I was like, that's SI. Wait a second. And I checked the Bandle Tree in my hand, and I was like, yes! It's pretty
That's why it's there, because people were playing that's one of the big reasons why people went to Noxus, is because like instead of the Bilgewater version, which was previously pretty popular with Fizz, where you'd play Mirai Warden, and it was just more consistent and House Spider's better. So
yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I hadn't even thought of that.
Yeah, totally. And it has definitely seemed good. And Poppy is Bandle City being the region that randomly has all these great champions. Like you can just put Fizz in your deck, you can put Teemo in your deck, and most importantly, you can put Poppy in your deck. Like, damn, like every time I look and I was like, oh, they're playing Bandle City Demacia, and then they like slam a House Spider, and I'm like, wait a minute, oh, that's right, dual region champions. Like the dual region thing makes it so easy to have so many different cards, different champions in your deck.
I think
really
that
crazy.
So I think that for all intents and purposes, the correct answer to this, like, I do think that the strongest region in the meta is Bandle City, just because like it just is the most versatile, like entirely because it has all the dual region stuff, and so like it's just the most prevalent region right now, which I think makes it the strongest. But for a little bit of diversity's sake, I want to try and make a case for Demacia being one of the best regions. I think Poppy is probably the best champion card in the current meta right now.
Yeah, but she's also Bandle City.
Maybe Nami. Yeah, and that's realistically why I think Bandle City is probably the correct answer, because she is also Bandle City. But like, I think that Poppy is insane. I think that the rally effects, like Relentless Pursuit,
that is my win rate. I keep losing. They put a bunch of units on board, so I'm like, all right, I survived. They're dead next turn, and then those 3 mana get taken away, and I'm like, all right, it's over. That rallies have killed me like 7 out of the last 9 games I've played against Demacia decks, and they're lethal every time. It's absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah, Golden Aegis too. Like the 6 rallies is insanely good and insanely real. Yeah. Sharp Sight is like better, just as good as it's always been, which is to say one of the best cards in the game, and it's still just that good, especially with all the space fish, the
starfish. I will fight you on this.
I really like space fish. I'm not gonna lie.
Mine's called Fish Mountain. It's, Mount Targon, but I'm aware it's not that good.
That's fine.
It's all right. Maybe Salt Mountain is better, because Bilgewater. That's a good one. I'll call it Salt Mountain.
Basically, I think that the Demacia cards, though maybe not the most prevalent, are like the worst Demacia card you see in a deck is like a 7.5 out of 10 right now. Like they're all so good.
That's fair. Yeah.
Like Fleet Feather Tracker, insane. Bright Steel Protector, insane. Sharp Sight, insane. Relentless Pursuit, insane. Golden Aegis, insane. Somebody played a Screeching Dragon against me the other day. That card's still completely unbeatable.
Yep.
I don't know.
Oh, yeah.
It feels like everybody just like gentlemen to forget about Screeching Dragon for a while, and it's completely unbeatable.
Have you guys, I don't know if this has been true for you, but I've noticed a weird resurgence of Shyvana J4.
Oh, I haven't played against that one at all.
Okay.
Yeah, I have not seen that.
Maybe
one
I'm
either.
just insane, but I've played against a weird amount of
sounds
that
good.
deck, and I've been getting absolutely handled by it.
It sounds really good, honestly. Yeah, like, I'm in.
So what is the mayor called? The 3-mana 2/2 that makes the guy?
Bandle City Mayor.
Bandle City Mayor. That card is...
That card's nonsense.
unreal.
That card's something. I played a game in which I attacked my opponent with a full board and a poppy on turn 4, which is just like because Bandle City Mayor made her 3 and let me play like a 1-drop for or 2-drop for 1, and then before that I'd gotten to play like Mariah Warden 1-drop, and it was just like absolutely insane.
You're hungry owl, whatever, owl cats.
Yeah, being
Owl-
0.
They're
Oh
0
my
all of a
God.
sudden. Like so many of your cards are dual region, and they just all of them costing 1 less is. I feel like that card should say dual region followers.
It does, doesn't it?
No, it doesn't. It applies to champions too, doesn't it?
Oh.
Yeah,
That's what you
just
meant.
followers. Like
I
it
thought
shouldn't.
I thought you meant it was currently doing fast spells.
No. I think it should just not make Lulu's
You're-
1 mana.
Yeah.
I mean,
That's
as-
maybe fair.
when there's 2 of them, yeah.
Yeah, and they're frequently. I don't know. Maybe I just get high rolled a lot.
Yeah, I've played against double mayor my fair share of times. 2-mana poppy is really something.
Yeah,
Like, oh my god.
The Mayor's also just like the absolute best card in the mirror too. It's just the only matchup where Mayor is like kind of not the best card in your deck is against like these Noxus mid-range decks like Draven Caitlyn. And even then, it's ridiculous because it gets Mystic Shot and replaced itself.
Yep,
Like,
absolutely.
It's just you can't find a bad matchup for it because it's just always good.
I mean, it's just too much value in one card. Like it's just like you said, it replaces itself. So like it doesn't even matter if they just Mystic Shot it.
Totally.
which is the most ridiculous part about the card.
I did just remember that I had another Noxus comment, which was that also the fact that Draven Scion is still around and still great, and Draven Caitlyn, like the fact that we have Draven Scion, Draven Caitlyn, and the Bandle City, the best Bandle City deck is seeming to be Noxus, is kind of what made me do that. Like Draven Scion just smashed my way through. I mean, it was silver, but I didn't lose very many games.
That deck's messed up.
And now I'm in gold 1, which is great. I been playing a lot of. I was going to do this at the beginning of the episode, but we kind of skipped over it. But I've been playing a lot of Starfish and a good amount of. I had a quest that was like summon 4+ units, cost units, and like challenge units. And I looked at the good decks in my queue, and I was like, Sivir costs 4+, Rune Runner costs 4+, and there's Merciless Hunter and Rock Hunter to do some challenging. Like, let's do it. I want to get these I want to get down my Bandle City's reward track before I have to craft all the cards. And I just went like 8-0, and it was just like through 2 levels of gold, and I was like, all right, yep, deck's still great.
Yeah.
Moving on.
So I guess that kind of ties nicely into the other question we have from Snonfobla. That is, they ask, what's the most annoying deck you've been playing against on ladder? Which also is going to tie in. Okay, so I'll start. I think that the most annoying deck by far is Spacefish or Starfish, whatever you want to call it. That is also the deck that I have been spamming.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I think it's the best ladder deck right now.
I just
At least
killed
that's
someone
my
with like
take.
a.
Other than maybe Draven Caitlyn, I think if you're playing Draven Caitlyn, you could definitely be having a lot of success with that. But man, that deck is so good. And when they just have like Nami into double trouble into Nami, it just feels like you can't win. Like there's so many games where they just have Nami and you're like, okay, I've played some darkness games where I'm like staring at double mini morph and I'm like, okay, as soon as they play Nami, I'm just gonna mini morph it instantly. And then they play Nami, you mini morph it. It's like, okay, great. I spent my 6 mana. And then they just like play another Nami and then they cast like 3 spells or something by the time you get another priority and the game's already over. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, that +2/+1, like that is so much. Shocked that Nami and Poppy, the cards that give permanent buffs to other units are what ended up being good out of this expansion. Absolutely lambasted by that one. But like the fact that she flips so easily, and like the secret was as soon as people realized that you should be playing like some 1 mana burst spells so that on turn 1 you can spend 1 of your spell mana and then play her and flip her, and some 3 mana slow and fast spells. And they need to be 3, not 2, because you want to use all of it so that you can cash in on the whole thing. And that you just shouldn't do anything until then. Like I looked down at my opponent's like board of lurkers. I looked down at my opponent's 2/2/1s. They went like Fleet Weather Tracker into Loping Telescope. And I looked down at Make It Rain. And I was like, I could take 4 damage, but Nami's going to flip a turn tuner. And it was like actually a tank of a choice. And I did end up killing their units and then killing them with Nami a turn later than I would otherwise because I was much healthier. But it's kind of ridiculous.
I like when you like draw your opening hand with that deck. I did something that I thought I would never ever be caught dead doing, and I mulliganed Zoe.
Yeah.
I'm just like not gonna play it. Like I'm like, oh look, I have Nami Double Trouble, and like when you open the hand of like Nami Double Trouble Zoe, you just like ship Zoe. You're like, oh whatever, I don't need this card. Like
it's ridiculous.
I
don't play on turn 1 or turn 2. I just want to bank mana
Obviously.
for my fish. Yeah.
It's ridiculous. It's crazy. And the deck still does the Zoe thing sometimes. Like sometimes you still just play Zoe on turn 1 because you don't have a Nami, and they still can't beat that. Like especially because a lot of the time people are just like, they know that you're not going to do anything until turn 3 a lot of the time. So like they just keep hands that aren't trying to kill Zoe on turn 1.
Honestly,
right?
I've had the
Obviously,
attack
it's not
token
very
on turn
good.
1 in a Zoe a lot. Not even had Nami on my hand and just been like, nah. Like, I'm all right.
That's crazy. That's crazy talk. I never thought I would, especially because turn 1 Zoe is still really good.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
It just kind of speaks to how ridiculous Nami is, I think.
Yeah. I mean, I just killed someone with like a 14 power Burblefish like a couple games ago. Like, it just absolutely ridiculous. They killed all my other things. They killed a Nami. They killed 2 Sparkle Flies. And then this last one was like, all right, the rest of my spells. Oh, thanks. I got to jump off my other units, so they just all go on this Burblefish. Guess you're dead.
I played a game against Draven Riven, and I think I kind of talked about this a little bit in the chat we're in, but I played. My opening hand was 3 Spell Thieves, all 3 copies of Spell Thief, and I was playing against this Riven deck. I was like, oh god, I'm just gonna die, and then he didn't kill me. And so I never drew Nami, but I just had a couple I had 2 Fleet Admirals, 3 Spell Thief by like turn 5 or whatever. And then he played his Blade of the Exile, and then I just attacked with just the hugest hugest Sparkle Fly of all time. It was just getting completely buffed.
Yeah.
Excuse me. That was a fun game.
Yeah. And you used the Spell Thieves to take the Blade of the Exile, right?
Yeah. I put 2 Blade of the Exiles on my creatures, like on my 2 Sparkle Flies. It was hilarious.
That's sick, yeah.
And then he was playing Draven Riven Demacia. So I had 3 Spell Thieves, and with my 3 Spell Thieves, I took Blade of the Exile, Golden Aegis.
Oh, God.
And I actually needed almost all of I needed the damage and the overwhelm because my opponent stunned one of my elusive units somehow. I don't quite remember. And then like had like double sharp sight. And so like the fact that my Sparkle Flies had overwhelm was actually enough to make it lethal.
That's crazy. That is super awesome. I had my favorite use of Spell Thief so far has been Spell Thiefing my opponent's Draven Axe to get like +5 power on a thing for lethal. Where
that's disgusting.
For 1 mana, yeah. Absolutely gross. Yeah.
Yeah, no, the deck in Nami Zoe is just absolutely
the turn 4 that I've felt the most powerful is like turn 4 after playing like a Double Trouble or the keg thing or whatever. Is playing the visions, the thing that makes the gun.
Yeah, the thing that makes the
Gift from Beyond.
Gift from Beyond. And then, Nami to fill that spell mana slot, and then making a Sparkle Fly that gets Nami's trigger to be a 3/3. off of the thing. And you can also do it with Boxtopus, but I've had more success with Sparklefly than Boxtopus. And then especially if you have another 1-mana spell to hit for 5 with a Sparklefly on turn 4, it's just like so over.
And the best part about that specific draw is that you almost all... So when you have either Double Trouble or line them up into Gifts Nami, your opponent is basically just forced to pass back because you're just going to put this Gifts onto the stack. And the actual best play I've found is just pass back and you burn a mana, but then you go into your next turn with 8 mana. You're going to spend 3 of it on a Sparklefly, and then you have all your protection spells. And it is ridiculous because most of the time I think when you end up randomly losing the game is when you try to put that 3 mana spell on the stack and they can kill your Nami in response. But if you just kind of pass, you just never lose.
That makes a lot of sense. That's a good tip. I'll try it out.
Yeah, I highly recommend it. What about you, Hugh? What have you been playing around with on the ladder?
There's what I've been spamming. And what was the other half of the question?
The question was, what's the most annoying deck you've been playing against?
Yeah. Okay. I had an answer for that. It's not actually Starfish for me. It's just Bandle City Swarm in general. I hate having to. I was playing TF Swain for a bit to deal with it, and it turns out that even after wiping their board the 3rd time, they still just have 7 cards in hand, and I have 2.
The Bandle Tree is just so insane. The Bandle Tree itself will just kill you, and even without that,
and
so much value.
A lot of these decks, a lot of the decks I was playing as weren't even that deck. Some of them just didn't. Yeah, there was just a Poppy deck that had a bunch of units and not the Bandle Tree, and I'd still just lose because, they draw all their cards, draw them new cards.
Yeah.
They manifest something, or they just, Pokey Stick draws a card.
Yeah.
All that kind of thing.
The Mayor makes a card. The Telescope makes a card. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. The Commando makes an Owlcat.
Yep.
They just have infinite cards all the time.
And they have the 3-mana draw too. And
Hidden Pathways is just absolute nonsense.
Yep, exactly. So that's been the most annoying for me. And I finally just looked down at all the stuff that people have been doing. And with the exception of exactly Starfish, it hasn't seemed like anyone heals in any significant amount at all.
Yeah.
And so I was like, I wonder if pirates just, that kills people, right?
That's my Hugh.
And turns out I was, at least for now, I was very correct. Today I'm 7-0 on pirates.
That's great. Yeah.
Because as I suspected, when your hand is decimate, double up, Noxian Fervor, it doesn't matter if they're at 12.
Double up been good.
Double up has been incredible.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I'm not.
Yeah, Lover of Pies was playing. I think he hit rank 1 early in the season. One of the first players to make it to Masters. I think he did it with Pirates, but he was playing Darius instead of Gangplank. I think he was playing 2 Darius, 1 Gangplank or something. He swore that the Darius was better then, but I think that it maybe isn't quite so true anymore now that there's a little more mini morph running around.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I do want to say one last thing that I think it was Hugh who brought this up, but a very cool interaction that has been run into is Spectral Matroning Scion, because it basically always flips your Scion, and then it's going to die because it's ephemeral. Then you're going to rally, which is just a lot of damage.
Yeah, no, doing a lot of there's a lot of weird, janky things you can do with Scion. I tried to build a Thresh Scion deck the other day, and it didn't end up being good. But
did you play Spectral Matron in that one? Because we could play Spectral Matron.
No, I didn't. I didn't even think about that. What I was doing was, I think the grossest thing I did with that deck, with the few games I played with it, was just getting out Scion off of a Thresh. They survive the hit somehow, and then I'm tapped out at this point, and I have no mana left. But it turns out Ravenous Butcher costs 0 mana.
Oh yeah,
to kill my own Scion. letting me rally
Oh yeah, baby.
and attack with the Scion returned, and then they're definitely dead.
Yeah, that's
Hello,
sick.
would you like to take 40?
Yeah, no one's ever prepared for 0 mana rally with another 10 power overwhelm creature.
Yep.
Yeah, that seems really hard to beat. I think that the Spectral Matron Scion thing is like, that's got some potential. I think one player brought that deck to Worlds. Or Worlds
cool.
Qualifier.
Yeah.
I don't think they qualified, but I do believe they brought it.
Yeah, good for them. Good for them. Tenor of Terror has also been really good. That card's excellent.
Yeah, as long as you
Random.
can turn it on, which is apparently always.
Yeah,
It's just on
you just
no
have
matter
to
what.
played a created card or killed a unit with its spell. It's like so generous.
Real fun story here. I the first game of Bandle, like the Bandle tree deck I played, I stole the card somehow, but I think it was the first game of the Bandle tree I played. I manifested that card off of my mare, and then I just like cast it, and I didn't get my thing, and I was like, what? Like, I just had no idea that card even had the clause, like, if you've played another thing, because I'd never seen it mint.
Well,
like,
one thing
it was just always on. Like, I just played it and didn't get my 2/3. I was like, what the hell?
Yeah.
This game's broken.
One of the things, if the tenor itself is created, you do still get the 2/3, which is insane. Because it's a summoned effect, and it says when I'm summoned, if you've played. And so when you play it, it is the created card, it makes a thing, which is one of the reasons it feels like it's always on. Because if you make it off Loping Telescope, it is always on.
Okay, yeah, that's disgusting. So yeah,
Or
I
off
must
mare.
have just drawn the card and,
Yeah.
and played it. And
Yeah.
Basically, I had no idea it even had that
Yeah,
text.
totally.
But yeah, it's always on.
Yeah, and that's just a lot of 5 power with impact over 2 bodies is a lot. Because that card hits for 7 if they don't block it. Like, impact goes through if you don't block. Like, dang. All right.
Yeah, that card's real good. All right, our next question comes from Mr. Purple, aka Ben. They ask, I've seen this conversation pop up in other Discords. Do you think that Bandle City brings too much RNG to the game? What do you think, Noble?
I don't think so. There's a couple cards that randomly create things. A lot of them are behold, so there's that. And like the most RNG I've gotten on this expansion is that like fucking Marasi Tidecaller card that like is the 3-mana 3/3 in Bilgewater that like shuffles the 6+ cost spells into your deck and then makes them cost 3, in which my opponent played that and then proceeded to rip like Judgment on the very next turn to wipe my board and stop my lethal attack, and then like Progress Day, and then like Runation, and then Singular Will Me. And like
So sick.
and so like I don't know, lots of regions have random elements. That card is Bilgewater, and like a lot of it is, that's the thing about the Bandle City cards, is they read random, but they're actually super consistent because they just always make, for example, the mayor just always makes a dual region card, which overwhelmingly is just another way to put more bodies on the board for a good rate. And the same is true of like Telescope. Like Telescope is not even close to, I mean, it's about as random as Invoke. Like maybe a little more. And like, I don't have a problem with that. So I don't think so.
Yeah, no, the idea that Bandle City brings the idea that it brings too much RNG is nonsense, and I don't even think it brings more RNG than a few other regions probably like this. Maybe it technically does, but when you look at the manifest clauses, like there's a relatively small card pool that they're drawing from. Like this is the first expansion with Bandle City in it. So the card pool for Bandle City itself is relatively small.
Yeah.
And also the card pool for dual region cards is probably smaller. And then Loping Telescope has like 3 separate, very specific clauses.
Yeah.
And honestly, that one's probably the most random because like a random epic rarity card is probably way more diverse than a random dual region card.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Like it's really not that much RNG. That's not the issue. It's just every card replaces itself.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Totally.
and basically, I feel very similarly. I mean, I have a history of playing competitive Hearthstone, so the fact that this would be too much RNG is
Nonsense.
almost kind of laughable to me. I have to say,
Laughs in unstable portal.
Yeah, or like Nat Peg. That was too much RNG. I played through the Nat Peggle Hearthstone meta, which for those of you who don't know, Nat Peggle was a 2-mana 0/4 that said at the end of your turn, you have a 50% chance to draw a card. And the game was low enough power and it was easy enough to protect that the game largely revolved around who drew their Nat Peggle and whose Nat Peggle drew them more cards. And that was awful. That's like, I still think that's one of the worst RNG like metas Hearthstone has ever had, and it was early on, so a lot of people don't talk about it, and it's not like Dr. Boom or whatever, right? Like, I have no problems with this amount of RNG, and I in fact quite like it. I think it's cool that sometimes the story Noble told earlier. I think that's hilarious. Yeah, he lost that game that he probably shouldn't have lost. But, at the end of the day, what matters more? Like
my LP,
your 20,
Alex, my
your
LP
20
is what
ladder
matters
points,
more.
or specifically Noble's 20 ladder points that I don't care about at all. or this like super fun story about this ridiculous thing that happened. You're not going to remember your 20 ladder points in 3 months, but you're going to remember that story. That's kind of where I land on a lot of these things.
True.
And in theory, it should kind of balance out. Oh, all right. So I guess on a similar vein, our next question comes from Carinol, Merciless Carinol. They ask, I think I hate this meta. I think I hate this meta a lot. What can I do when very few of the new decks don't interest me, but I still want to play the game? And what do you all think of the play pattern of a lot of the Bandle City archetypes that seem to be rampant on ladder? You want to take this one, Hugh?
Yeah. So on the point of the play pattern of Bandle City, did they say Bandle City or Bandle Tree?
City.
Bandle City archetypes.
Bandle City archetypes. Okay, cool. Yeah. So on the topic of Bandle City, I really, really don't appreciate having to like 4-for-1 my opponent multiple times and them still having more cards in hand than me. That'll never feel good or correct. I'm not a fan of the swarm archetype in general. Although it's been giving me a lot of LP recently, so I can't hit on it too much. But yeah, no, it doesn't feel great to me. I'm not a huge fan of it. I've played a lot of it myself, and even that doesn't feel that great to me either. Yeah, I'm not wild about most of Bandle City's play pattern. As far as what you can do when you're not really feeling ladder, or if you don't like any of the new decks, as far as not liking new decks, there's nothing wrong with just running back your 2 or 3 favorite decks over and over and over again.
When in doubt, burn them out. Pirates it.
Yeah. Or, just whatever happens to be like your deck that you love and you've never stopped love playing, like you can still play that deck. And yes, if your goal is to get to Masters and that deck sucks, that is a bit of a problem. But if you're determined to play this game because you love it and you're really, really not feeling ladder, remember there are other things you can do. Like during the entire period of the Azarelia like burnout phase where we're all just kind of like sick of it, I just played tons of lab.
Yeah.
Like there are a lot of ways to enjoy Legends of Runeterra without playing ranked ladder.
Totally. And like, yeah, I just want to chime in with like, there are, maybe not your thing, but like stuff like Draven Kate is well positioned right now. Like you can always just, sigh on people. And I've had some success with some aggro decks. It's kind of annoyed when you just like, the Bandle City player just like chumps their entire board 3 turns in a row and just keeps rebuilding and then eventually Bandle trees you. But I think the key to beating Bandle City is finding some way to go around with either overwhelm or or Reach. A lot of the decks aren't playing mini-morph. Like a lot of the Bandle Tree decks I see are not playing that many mini-morph. And so you can sneak through a Darius or a Scion or, a large thing. I killed a lot of Bandle City players with unblockable Sivers. So there are some options. You just have to be able to go around it. Like, you are not going to be able to beat Bandle City on the ground playing their game, trying to slog through their units, unless you're packing a lot of board wipes, and maybe not even then. But good luck to you. I think that there are some. I think this meta is open enough that there are some really cool like sleeper picks that you can definitely play.
Also, the meta feels a bit
ahead, Hugh.
cyclical right now because there's just so much stuff going on. It feels like there's a new best deck every other day, and then when that new best deck surges in popularity, another deck comes out to beat it, and then we go through this cycle of kind of not quite rock paper scissors, but just sort of like a weird food chain where the best deck rises and then is brought low by its counter, which then rises, and then that's brought low by that deck's counter, and so on and so forth. Eventually we'll stabilize, but it still feels to me like we're a little bit in that phase.
Yeah, so I agree with you there, Hugh. So what I have to say about this is, for starters, what do I do if these decks don't interest me, but I still want to play? I'll say, for one, you can just play the decks that you like. That's easier said than done, obviously, from a competitive standpoint. We had a whole episode, or at least a segment, where we addressed that Riot article where they talked about how the community perception of a 1% win rate increase, like the difference between 49 and 51%, or call that 2%, is very high. When in all practicality, it's only 2%, right? It's really not that big of a deal. You can make up for far more percentage points by just playing better, right? So, if your decks are not super well positioned, the decks that you like playing are just not kind of that good, they're still probably at like a 47% win rate, in all likelihood, at least the reasonable ones, right? So, there's something to be said for, you can just sort of like take a step back and, yes, your deck is not going to feel as good as it has in the past. Yes, you are going to lose some games that kind of feel like bullshit to the Bandle Tree or whatever, just because, it's a different meta. You might need to change some cards here and there. But at the end of the day, your win rate is really not going to be all that much lower than if you were playing the best deck and being miserable the whole time, right? I think that you should absolutely play the deck that you want to play with a 47% win rate instead of the best deck with a 53% win rate and hate it the whole time, and I think that odds are you're going to climb faster doing that as well. In theory, 47% win rate means you won't climb at all, but if you're putting this much time into a deck, into an archetype, learning it in a meta, I strongly believe that any reasonable pile can have above a 50% win rate in the hands of a skilled player that understands their matchups well.
Totally.
In this game especially. So I think that's interesting. As far as like, from a competitive standpoint, so like me personally, that in and of itself, the fact that, I would feel unhappy basically doing that. Like, I would rather play a deck I don't like that I think is better than I would play a deck I like that I think is worse, just because that's kind of the type of player I am. Like, I really can't get past the fact that I think I'm playing a bad deck if I'm playing a bad deck, and it kind of tilts me. Even though, so, it's hard for me to take my own advice there. So I'd say if you are like me and you feel similarly to that, it's much harder, but you kind of have to find your motivation in a different spot, basically. And, there's a lot of really different ways to enjoy the game, right? Like, there's Expedition. We talked about Expedition a lot last week, how we all really enjoy it. You can play labs. The labs are great. If you want to play the game but you don't want to seriously ladder, you can try and play the gauntlets every week. The gauntlets are a really fun, different way to play the game. The tournaments, too, as well. Tournaments are a very different experience from ladder, so I think that, if you're really frustrated with ladder, you can get a different experience in any of the tournaments. I think you can try and play friendly games, scrims or whatever with friends. A lot of the time, decks that you think are like bullshit, or you just don't really get that upset when you're in comms with somebody, I think, and you're both laughing about it. Even if you get totally cheesed out of a game that you probably should have won when they're playing Bandle Tree or whatever, you can definitely still have fun playing those games. You can always play normals, right? Like there's a lot of ways to play the game. Basically, if your joy from the game comes from playing ranked ladder, which mine really kind of does most of the time, then I feel like a lot of the time that kind of just lines up with wanting to play the best deck. And if you just find yourself at a point where you don't want to play the best deck, then it probably means that you don't want to play ranked ladder that bad.
It's totally fine to take
yourself, a break. And that's fine. Yeah, you just do something else. Yeah.
Cool. Do we have our question of the week next? What's up?
I think we've got one more, and then we'll do our question of the week last. I feel like I can get a nice mix up there.
That makes sense, yeah.
All right, our next question comes from Dragon. They ask, now that we've seen the players going to Worlds and what decks they brought, what do you think was the most interesting lineup that a player qualified with?
Right. I believe it was Real Key.
Yeah.
That's his name? Yeah.
I think we're in agreement here.
Yeah.
Actually.
They brought just 3 Bandle Tree decks.
Yeah, it was Freljord, Noxus, and Bilgewater. The one that I hadn't seen before was the Freljord one. It's just really interesting. Like, I mean, they qualified and obviously it was good. And that's the kind of thing that, like, because it's not a champion and because you can do it in so many different regions, it's hard to ban out. And you can ban the best one, but if you don't have a good matchup against any of them, you're going to get stomped.
Yeah, exactly. And the Bandle Tree also is just a card that just wins on its own. Like, if you just play it on 5, you will win the game, period, in like 3 or 4 turns.
Yeah, both to the condition and to all of the cards that you make.
Yeah, because it's not like Sundisk, where it's like a card that will win you the game but does literally nothing. It's a card that will win you the game and will also take steps to help you win a normal game because it draws you units.
Making dudes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I've made I have a favorite Bandle Tree story. My second to last region was Shurima, and I popped off that it's like an 8 mana 8/5 that says when I'm summoned, if you've slain 13 units, wipe their board and summon a copy of me. And like I attacked with all of my guys. And I was at 11 when it summoned it, and 11 slays. And then I attacked with all of my units. He chumped 2 off, and then the next turn he like developed, and I slammed my 8 mana Runation plus 17, 14 power, and it was just absolutely obscene. Anyway, it'll make you cards like that'll win you games, and then sometimes it'll just make you arena bookies, which will also win you games. Or not arena bookies. I meant the 4 mana 4/2 Yordle.
That'll still win you games.
Yeah,
Arena Kingpin.
Yeah, the other thing I was surprised about in the list was how much Noxus Bandle Tree there was. Like I said, almost a third of the list looked like they had it. Alex is using my phone to be on the speaker right here, so I can't actually look at exactly what they were. But there were also a ton of Draven Caitlyn that is unsurprising that you want to be flash bombing and casting removal spells when there's many little furry rugrats running around that you got to stomp.
Yeah. So I think that back on the Real Keys lineup, I actually think that particular lineup is incredibly interesting for a couple reasons. The most relevant part is I think that it might actually have a lasting impact on the game as a whole, in that I think that this might have been the thing that needed to happen for the Riot rule set to kind of switch over from what it currently is. Because right now it's champ lock, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of people have been, or at least it's been a common sentiment amongst Legends of Runeterra tournament players, is that they would rather have it be card locked or collection locked, basically. So such that you can't have this 9x Bandle Tree lineup. Basically, this becomes relevant in metas where the champions are not necessarily the most impactful cards. We saw that happen when in the Aphelios meta with Veiled Temple, where the Veiled Temple was the most relevant card in the meta. We're seeing it happen now with the Bandle Tree, where the Bandle Tree is the most relevant card in the meta, where you end up with these decks that are not just similar decks that have, you know, a similar matchup spread. You know, when you think about like the lineup that Emotional won the last seasonal with, right? Like a Swarm aggro deck, a like Rally aggro deck, and a Burn aggro deck, right? Like these are three decks that have a similar plan in theory, a similar matchup spread, but they all go about doing it in very different ways. The game themselves are very different, right? That seems like a very healthy example of, you know, what trying to end up with three quote unquote same decks would look like in a tournament. I do not think 9 copies of the Bandle Tree and just change a couple champions is a healthy example of this, basically.
Totally.
And I think that it kind of got a lot of attention because of just how degenerate it looks. And if it does really well in the tournament, which I think it kind of might, I think that we might actually see a long-lasting rule set change because of this particular, because of Real Key making it with this lineup. Which
and you can also envision, like, there have been metas
takes the cake,
where like my plan was to play 9 Withering Whales, right? 9x Shadow Isles, 9 Withering Whales, 9 Vile Feasts, because it was lining up so well against what other people were doing. There were a lot of lineups that just couldn't beat it. And, you know, when I wasn't doing that, it was 2 and 2, and one was TF Swain, where you're like getting a ton of redundancy. And, you know, you can easily imagine an Invoke lineup where like one of your decks is like Diana, has Diana in it. Another deck is like Shyvana Asol, and the third deck is like a Zoe Invoke deck, and like a, you know, a Victor kind of deck or
Zoe
kind of
Garen
thing. And they're
whatever.
all going to play really similarly. They're all going to be casting Solari Priestesses and big Invoke cards. And it's not that hard to make a lineup like that if that is attacking the meta in the way that you want, because your only individual cards are like, you know, 2 Atrocities in one, some Demacia fight spells in another, and, you know, a couple Mystic Shots in the third. Like, you can really easily, you can get in spots in this game, especially with all 10 regions out and a meta that's kind of shifting where that becomes what to do. And I would honestly like to see at least what region lock is like, or not region lock. You know what I meant. We currently have region lock.
Card lock.
Yeah. We don't currently quite have region lock. We have region combination lock. I don't think I'd want to play one where there was region lock, where you couldn't have Demacia in more than one deck, just because it feels kind of weird. But like collection lock just kind of does that enough in all the ways that I care about. You know, like I don't care if people play like elites and splash. I don't know, man. I don't know. Oh, splash Lux in their Targon deck. Like that's totally fine. Like collection lock is, I think, where it's at.
I think I agree. All right, and our last question is our question of the week this time. This one comes from Log. They ask, last episode, I was surprised to hear that you all love Expedition so much. I got into Magic the Gathering through Limited and never really got into MTG Constructed besides casual popper games with friends. When I draft an Expedition deck, I feel like I miss wheeling and the rush of pack one, pick one-ing a busted rare or fun build around, which I don't really feel in Expeditions. That being said, I love the low power level gameplay once I have a deck that isn't complete dung. Do I need a mindset shift? What are the nuances in Expedition I am missing since I only do it once a month or so? Thanks. So I guess I'll take a start with this one real quick. I would say that there are definitely, like, I still feel the rush of pack one, pick one-ing a bomb in Expedition, personally, when I play, because it just feels like some of the champions are so good. Like, you know, we talked a little bit about like back in the day, and I'm going to give more examples from back when I played more Expedition. Obviously, you know, my focus has been on Constructed lately. So, you know, when I think Expedition, I'm thinking like, I remember being stoked every time I saw Callista, because I thought Callista was just the best champion. So like, and then, you know, there's some times where you open up your 3 champs, or like when Bilgewater first came out, Nautilus was insane in Expedition. Like the Sea Monster package, because they were boosting the Sea Monsters because they were the new cards. You could play Nautilus and then 4 7/7s on turn 7 like every game, and it was so busted.
Yeah, because the decks were smaller because they were Expedition decks. You got deep so fast.
Yeah. Yeah. So it was like really sick. So I kind of have always, it doesn't quite feel the same as like slam dunking a scarab god. Yeah, or whatever. Like it's not quite the level of bomminess in limited that you can see in Magic, I don't think, but that's because our game is not so much built around limited as Magic is, right? Like every Magic set is built to be drafted, and every Legends of Runeterra set is built for constructed. And I think you kind of can feel that in Expedition a little bit, but I still think you're gonna like end up with some really good champions sometimes. And sometimes, you open up your Expedition and you see like Quinn, Misfortune, and like Garen, and you're like, these all suck, like, and that really does kind of put in the perspective the like, or when you would get Hecarim when Hecarim was busted, that it was so insane, like
Totally, yeah. And I'll take it and run from here. Like I think that wheeling feeling. So the big up in my Expedition game was there were some posts on the Legends of Runeterra subreddit way back when, and I don't think they're even useful now, that were talking about bundles. And you can find the information of what cards, like, so how packs have names and they have champions associated with them, for example, Misfortune and Quinn could both be in a pack called Scout Party or whatever. I don't know if that's actually the name, but like those will be the two champions
like
they'll be in.
Yeah.
And then there's a specific set of cards. So starting to like identify the kind of deck that you want to build based on the kind of packs that you're going to get. And if you take a champion with that pack first, I think you're like guaranteed to see at least one selection of cards from those packs in like either like 90% or 100% of your things going forward. So that first choice can really influence what kind of deck you have. And so getting off course from your first pick can lead to the wackiest Expedition decks because the algorithm is feeding you things that you don't need. That's why if you get Nautilus like second, you'll end up with like 3 sea monsters, but if you take him first, you'll end up with like 10.
It's also worth noting that, like, real quick, if I can interject here, there's a lot of the champions have more than one bucket that they're in, and that actually can make a big difference on how good that champion is. So, for example, Garen has a Demacian Steel bucket that has basically all the good Demacia cards. It's got Battlesmith and a bunch of elites, and like I think that package is really, really good in Expedition, basically. Like Vanguard Bannerman, stuff like that. I think it's one of the best decks. And there's also a like Protect and Serve or something along those lines bucket that Garen is in that has like Chain Vest and Riposte and like a lot of the Fiora cards that are just not that good, I don't think. And so like even if there's the exact same 3 cards, like Garen Single Combat,
Vanguard Redeemer,
right? Which I think happens to be a bucket that you could get in both of those 2 archetypes. Like one of them is much better, which totally is kind of cool.
And so that kind of knowledge is really interesting. And my favorite thing about Expedition is the same experimentation that you get in Draft, where you get to see new combinations of decks, like getting to see, Lux plus Aphelios and all the guns making the Lux lasers, that kind of thing. That is really cool to me. And I really like seeing, and kind of seeing new cards in new contexts. Which is why I really like it, and that's part of it. And that feeling of wheeling a card or opening a card in the 3rd pack, I definitely get in Legends of Runeterra, like late in the thing where my like 2nd to last one is like, oh thank God some removal. The 5th Vengeance. Was worried there for a second. Or the like after you win a game and you get the perfect champion and get to just like slam it, it's like feels so good.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's interesting that we had a question about expeditions because there's also, I don't know if you guys saw this, but there was someone who posted on the subreddit like a couple days ago about how much they like hated expeditions and how there was a bunch of things wrong with them. And I was kind of curious. So I read through it, and one of their points I felt was pretty valid, and that was that there's a lot of bundles that frequently have like a dead card or like a card
Yeah.
that's like particularly low quality that you really don't want. And frequently in Expedition, an issue you'll run into is, should I pick this pack that has this one card that I really want, but 2 cards that I absolutely don't want? Or should I pick this other pack that has 3 cards that are fine? And that is the one thing about Expedition that I do think is just kind of subpar. And the thing about that,
Because you're locked into taking groups of cards, is what
right?
you mean.
You're locked
Because
into
like in Magic, you can be like this sideboard card or this card, it's whatever, and you can always take the card you want.
exactly. But the thing is, something they used to do, which I was just, as Noble was talking, scrolling through patch notes, like all their patch notes for a while, and I got down to 2.9 is how far I got for like 3 months ago or something. And I was searching for when the last time they actually balanced and changed card pools instead of just adding new ones. And I couldn't find the last time they actually adjusted any. They used to
Very frequently.
very frequently, like patch by patch, just say, hey, we're going to try out some new things in Expeditions. We're going to take these couples of cards out of this seeded pack. Like, let's say we're going to take, Jettison out of Terrors of the Deep. That would be a terrible idea. They didn't ever do that, I don't think. The Nautilus archetype. But like we're gonna take, Green Glade Warden out of Scouted Out, whatever.
Yeah.
And we're gonna replace it with this other card. And they haven't done that
For a while, yeah.
in months. And I think it's starting to show a little bit because the 3 most recent patches they've over the course of 2.13, 1.4, and 1.5, they've added, I think, 9 new named card groupings to Expeditions, but they have not in a very, very long time actually adjusted any of them.
The best thing they ever did was there are some cards that basically literally never appear in Expedition, like Shadow Shift, like cards that are just absolutely useless. They've actually had a point where they were like, okay, we can accept that these cards don't even need to be in Expedition. Like, let's just cut them.
Yeah. And, it basically, I still love Expeditions. I play it every now and then. I have definitely felt that this person's particular complaint is valid. I still have a good time, but it does feel like that game mode has, since the implementation of labs, has really kind of fallen by the wayside.
I was going to say that it felt like all of this attention went to labs instead, which is great. Labs are great, but I would love to see a little love for our expeditious homies.
It really does kind of feel a little bit like the redheaded stepchild of Legends of Runeterra at this point, unfortunately. But I don't know. I will say, real quick, I actually, personally, one of my favorite things about Expedition is those decisions where you have 3 reasonable cards versus 2 good ones and a health potion. I actually think those are really interesting. So I'm probably in the minority there, but I don't know. I guess at least it hit home for me. So
I also think they're interesting. There is a line there, I think, where you go from being interesting to sloppy, and they're sort of starting to veer into the range of sloppy rather than interesting.
I think I agree. I really, honestly, if we get Expedition ranked, the format's just going to be fixed.
Oh yeah,
it got brought up last week, but ever since then, I went back and played a couple. I've played 2 Expeditions this week since I hit Masters, just because we got an Expedition question last week, and I was like, I love Expedition, I should play some more. So I did. I hit Masters, and then I took a break and played a couple Expeditions, and it was great. I'm glad I did. Right, so I hope we get Expedition ranked. I kind of have been thinking about that ever since we got that question.
I doubt it'll ever happen, but I would love that.
Yeah, same here.
Yeah. All right. Do you guys have anything else you want to add here before we wrap it up for the day?
Nope. I'm excited for Worlds, which sounds like it's in about a week from now.
Yeah, not this weekend, but next weekend. Starting on the 16th.
Yep.
Thursday the 16th.
So kind of 2 episodes from now, we'll get to do our Worlds episode, which will be very fun. Very excited for. Yeah.
Alrighty. Well, I'd like to thank everyone for listening to this episode. If you are not a member of our Discord, you absolutely should be. You can ask us questions in case you want to have your chance for glory and battle for the question of the week. Of course, it's very important, very prestigious. So make sure to join the Discord. There's links for all of our socials as well in the description of whatever platform you are listening to this on. And without further ado, we'll see you all in the next episode of Champ Select. Bye-bye.